5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another live episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. It's Kelcey, and as always, I'm joined by my guy DJ. DJ, we're just gonna get into it because we don't really have a whole lot of time because we got a whole lot of bowl games to get Pickett to because it's Christmas season, it's Pickmas season, if you will. But first, we have some Heisman candidates. We finally know our finalists, and that's gonna lead us into the tip-off, man. And tip-off is brought to you by Dr. Squatch. If you guys haven't checked out Dr. Squatch yet, go do so. They have so many fantastic soaps. And DJ, I mean, there's a line that they put out that you absolutely love.
Basically, smell like a man, feel like a champion. It's as simple as that as well, too. You can get a variety of different soaps, Christmas time, get some Christmas Black Friday deals, get everyone smelling nice and lovely for the holiday season. You can't show up to Christmas dinner smelling like you just woke up. You got to smell clean and fresh, so in front of all your relatives. And what better way to do it without a little squatch?
Absolutely. So now checking it out, though, as you can see on the bottom line, there's your 4 Heisman Trophy finals. You have Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, Bryce Jones from Alabama, C.J. Stroud, Ohio State, and the man, the myth, the legend, Kenny Pickett from Pitt, the guy who's kind of worked his way into this from really the outside looking in. Everybody else, other than I'd say Aiden Hutchinson, kind of been up here the whole time. Aiden Hutchinson, first defensive player to finish in the Final Four since Ndamukong Suh, way back
Chase
when.
Young.
Sorry, Chase Young. Yeah, that's right. Never mind. My bad. He was in the top 4. But yeah, so there you go. Top 4 guys, Aiden Hutchinson. But DJ, I feel like we'd be remiss to say if there's not a couple guys that we're both missing.
Everyone here deserves to be there. No slight against anybody else. When I look at this, I think there's one crucial character missing, and that is none other than Kenneth Walker, the running back from Michigan State. You can see the numbers right now. 1,636 yards, second in all of college football, 18 touchdowns, rushing, including a receiving touchdown, 0 fumbles. Everybody he played, minus Ohio State, he made an impact for. Obviously, everyone's going to look at that Ohio State game. A, he got hurt early in the game. Let's not ignore that. And B, that game was a flood before he even got his helmet strapped on. They were down 28-0 after 5 plays. There's not a whole lot he could have done in that game besides, but honestly, what he did do. I mean, with injuries and that sort of game, there's not a lot that anyone could do. No running back in the history of college football could have stopped that and saved that Ohio State game. That was a complete juggernaut of an offense versus Kenneth Walker. And that is literally pretty much it. He was absolutely sensational the entire season. One of the best running backs we've seen, not named Jonathan Taylor in the last handful of years as well, too. Ironically, both Big Ten running backs. He was sensational, carried this team on his back, single-handedly beat the number 2 team in the country in Michigan, almost single-handedly by himself, as close as you could get from a running back. I'm not saying he needed to win it necessarily. We'll talk about who we think should be winning it, but the fact that he didn't even get an invite for that Michigan, considering what he did for that Michigan State team that was at one point ranked number 2, literally just because of him, kind of shocking to me. I mean, the best running back in the country, put up the stats to prove it, and didn't even get an invite. Especially, I mean, there's 4 people there. Not saying any of them don't deserve to be there, but there's maybe 1 or 2 guys in there that you can't have over Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like Kenneth Walker, what he did against Michigan, first of all, that's just going to go down in the history books between in Big Ten and really, I'd say even NCAA play in general. I mean, that game was insane to watch. Just every touch, you didn't know whether he was going to take it to the house or take it to the house in different ways. Like he was just that electric in the Michigan game. And I mean, you talk about there's a Heisman Trophy finalist from Michigan up here in Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, look at this man. He single-handedly held Aiden Hutchinson at bay because Aiden Hutchinson can't do anything against the run. So, I mean, you look at that, and that's a big plus to Kenneth Walker. If like Aiden Hutchinson's up here, well, why isn't Kenneth Walker getting the opportunity? Just because, I mean, he beat that team. It's kind of the same concept as putting a team in the playoffs that got beat by another team. It's like, well, why isn't he up here? But Kenneth Walker is obviously fantastic. I can't disagree with you right there, but he is not my case for missing out on this one. Mine goes, as always, I always say the credentials are in the waistline, and that means I'm going with the big guy. That big man from Georgia, Jordan Davis, 28 tackles, 14 solo, 3.5 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hurries, 2 sacks, and let's not forget a big man touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown from the big guy. But this is from a defensive tackle, nose tackle position, a 4-down set pretty much every play. And he is doing this type of damage. That is unheard of. You just don't do that from the dead center of the line. That's something that freaks of nature do. And this man is a freak of nature, 350 pounds and just dominating people. He is literally a monster. If I could pull up the picture of him standing next to Wyatt, who's also on this defense, who is a 6'4" guy, makes him look super short. But this is a man, I think, that honestly, if it hadn't been for that Alabama championship game, I think he's in this race. And the only reason he really isn't in that race is just the weird play calling from Georgia, I feel like, at the end of the day. So, but that's my guy who I have missing out. DJ, what do you think about those?
What's weird is when we look at all the candidates too, it feels like they all pretty much had one bad game. You look at with Bryce Young, that Auburn game, he was pretty meh throughout all of it as well. Even Texas A&M was a little meh. CJ Stroud against Michigan and a few other games. Nebraska, meh. Aiden Hutchinson against Michigan State and a few others too. It's You mentioned Jordan Davis against Alabama, not quite Jordan Davis. All of them except for Kenny Pickett seem to have a game where it's like meh, but yet some of them got in and others didn't. Why couldn't you just invite 6 people to the Heisman Trophy thing? I mean, they've done it before. I mean, it's not like it has to be 4, only 4 is allowed. It's not the college football playoff. You can invite 6 people there. And I think they could have easily fit all 6 of them in there. If I had to take one out, I'd probably take out CJ Stroud because he had more of those games that were like, as wonderful as he was, Kenneth Walker did that by himself. CJ Stroud has 3 first-round receivers and all of those players. I don't want to discredit anything he did. It's more or less of just how good Kenneth Walker and even Jordan Davis as well, 2 guys that could have made it. And that's crazy to think we could have had 2 defensive linemen in this Heisman going to New York reasonably as well, too. Very, very much within play if they didn't just narrow it down to 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you said it. Like, bring 6, bring 5, bring whatever number you have to bring to make this comfortable. Maybe just bring 3 quarterbacks if you're going to keep it offensive only. But I feel like this year we should have honestly probably had 2 defensive players, and that's just really, in my opinion, how I feel about it. But enough of the if, ands, or maybes. There's 4 guys. That's just how there is. There's 4 guys going to split all these votes. And DJ, in your opinion, who do you think is going to pull this one out? Who do you think has the best case to pull this one out?
I'll be hard-pressed to see if it's anyone besides Bryce Young walking away with the Heisman Trophy, especially after what he did to Georgia in that top-ranked defense. I mean, accounted for 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. You just look at his numbers on the season, 43 touchdowns, 2nd in college football, 2nd in QBR, 4th in yards, only 4 interceptions, plus a few rushing touchdowns. He was absolutely sensational on the season. Poise in the pocket, clean mobility, strong arm. And he did that even when Mechie got hurt. He still continued it as well, too. Jamison Williams and John Mechie, both outstanding receivers, going to go in the 1st round. So he did it with plenty of help. But Bryce Young was an absolute surgeon. He honestly looked like what everyone said Tua was, that Tua never quite landed. And that's not even an insult considering how good Tua was. I feel like this is what Tua's max potential could be. And I think Bryce Young could even surpass that. And he's still got a little bit of time left as well, too. So even if he doesn't win it this year, I think Bryce Young is going to be a regular in this ceremony for including next year and maybe 1 year after. If he was eligible, we might be talking about Bryce Young as the number 1 quarterback in this draft coming up as well, too. He put on an absolute clinic. And minus that Auburn game where he struggled for the most part, still threw a game-tying touchdown pass at the end of regulation and survived in 14 overtimes or whatever it was as well. Yeah. So Bryce Young, I think he was an absolutely sensational. I think he's, for me, the hands-down Heisman Trophy favorite right now. And I think that Georgia game was we were actually calling that game the whole time. We're like, well, we'll have to see. Well, okay, he's making a case. Well, okay, it's leaning this way. Okay, damn it, just give him the award already. This is getting ridiculous, Bryce. Stop. He's already dead. You've ended Georgia's reign. Okay, you can stop. So I'm leaning towards Bryce Young. I think it's been such a close race the entire year. I think that was kind of the stamp of approval. That's where he, quote unquote, took it, considering there was no front runner this whole year. And he was one who had the most recent dominant performance to punch his ticket.
Yeah, look, I just want to. I know I'm getting cut off by the thing, but I got to look back at this chart because the second in the QBR race, that to me is just absolutely insane. Like, how do you go second in the QBR and throw for over 4,000 yards and 43 touchdowns and only 4 picks? I mean, that's unheard of. Like, the 43 touchdowns by itself is just insane. I mean, had it not been for Bailey Zapp, the kid from Western Kentucky, who, by the way, is a number 1 in all the stats. And if you're talking about a guy out of the that was in a non-Power 5 team that maybe deserved a conversation about this, maybe him, but he also threw for 14 picks or something like that. So, take it for what it's worth. Kind of like old school Hawaii back in the day, the air raid, June Jones Hawaii, if you will. But no, this is, I mean, his stat was insane, and people are gonna like look at him and be like, oh, well, he was a dual threat. No, literally 71 rushes and only 31 yards. His 3 touchdowns were from 1 yard out, each one of them.
Like he's not a running quarterback. He is a quarterback that can extend the pocket and throw a little bit too. Like, he's closer to Matthew Stafford than he is like a Jalen Hurts or anything like that as well. To a guy that can move a little bit, but he's not running for, minus that 1 Georgia touchdown run. He's not running around all over people. He's just sliding away. He's just very quick of foot. Yeah, dude, he's just a great quarterback, and he is just making it more and more known as time goes by. And you're exactly right. He has so much more time
Like, he's only a sophomore. As an Auburn fan, I am not looking forward to the next 2.5 years. I can tell you, I'm just like, that laugh is more like a laugh of fear than anything else right now. It's like, oh, great, we have to deal with that for more years.
And before we get into your pick too, I'll say that's a matter day, a California quarterback kid, just like CJ Stroud is a California quarterback kid. That's why they brought in Lincoln Riley to USC. For anyone who was questioning that as well too, that's why, because they had to see those kids leave 3 time zones from there instead of just staying up the street. So that's why you bring in Lincoln Riley if you're USC and you empty out the Brinks trucks in his front into his front yard. Like, all right, we need to keep these guys because we can't let Bryce Young go to Alabama. We can't let CJ Stroud go to Ohio State. We got to keep those kids right here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that does get me into my pick, and I kind of joked about it when I introed the Heismans earlier. The man, the myth, the legend, the kid out of Pitt, the guy who has been working himself up, not just draft boards, but Heisman Trophy boards. Kenny Pickett has been outstanding. As I talked about with Bryce Young, obviously what he's done is fantastic because I mentioned that QBR to the passing stats. You see it here with Kenny Pickett, 7th in QBR at 81.5, 5th with 4,300 yards. He was literally 3 yards behind Bryce Young by the end of the season. Like, how insane is that? 42 touchdowns, 1 touchdown behind, only threw 3 more picks. And by the way, 97 rushes, 241 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. And by the way, his longest 58-yard run came in that national championship, or came in that ACC championship game where he faked a slide, and now there's going to be a rule change because of Kenny Pickett. I think it's safe to say at the end of this one. But this guy has been just absolutely outstanding all season to me. And when the thing with Heisman to me is it's the most outstanding player for their team alone, but then also, like, you look at it, I honestly don't think Bryce Young's the best player on Alabama. And I think that's what hampers a Heisman Trophy race. It's kind of the old Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart argument for me. Whereas Kenny Pickett is hands down the best person on Pitt, hands down the best best player in the ACC, and I'd honestly say hands down the best quarterback coming up into this draft cycle as well. So, I mean, on top of all that, that's what leads me to give him the Heisman because of everything out there. And as you said, Bryce Young still has time to grow and make his way into this one. But that's why I have Kenny Pickett as my Heisman Trophy frontrunner, who I think is going to win the Heisman Trophy.
I do love me some Kenny Pickett, and I do agree with you. He is going that top-rated quarterback coming out in the draft cycle, but weirdly enough, it's that college football season where the best quarterbacks aren't eligible. Weirdly enough, as well too. But I do like some Kenny Pickett. If he wins it out, you're not going to hear any complaints out of me. I'm looking at what Bryce Young did, that top-ranked, all-time great defense, and suddenly they are overrated. They went from one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen to the most overrated defense ever, and basically completely ruined all of their secondary's chances of getting drafted. And honestly, hurt Jordan Davis. He kicked Jordan Davis out of here as well too. Wow, that's all I can say.
Look, he kicked a 350-pound, 6'7", 6'6" guy out of the Heisman Trophy candidacy. So that's pretty insane. Look, I think it's going to go to Bryce Young. If I'm going to literally just take away my thought process and be like, okay, well, how do the people always pick? And it always goes to the Alabama side of things, or the bigger team, if you will, side of things. I think outside of Lamar Jackson at Louisville, everybody else, every other like close race that has one guy that's not as big of a team, like prestige-wise, it always goes to the bigger teams. It feels like I think Toby Gerhart, should have deserved that Heisman Trophy back in the day, went to Mark Ingram instead.
I think with the exception of like Lamar Jackson, the other ones I can think of are like RG3 with a smaller Baylor school and stuff like that too. Like, it's very few and far between. And honestly, we're going to go by like how you mentioned the best player on a team where you're the best player and it's not even close, really. You're not surrounded by talent like that. That's why I think Kenneth Walker should be in here on that alone. And if he was in there, you could reasonably make the case. I mean, they're in a big bowl game because of him. It is not because of their passing game. That is for damn sure. That defense, while pretty good, it's not even the top 3 defense in its own conference. Like, that is Kenneth Walker and strapping that entire army of Sparta on his back and carrying them this far. So under the circumstances you let out for Kenny Pickett, that's why I think Kenneth Walker should be in there. And if Kenny Pickett wins it, you're going to see me smile and be like, yes, well deserved as well too.
Honestly, I think all these guys up here deserve it. I hate to take it away from any of them. Like we said, I think the only one we could probably replace up here is CJ Stroud. But honestly, there's no need to replace any of them. I feel like you just invite 2 more guys. You have a 6-man team in New York. You call it swell. You already vote for the top 10 anyways. So might as well send the top 6 or however many you want to send them. Like, they're all going to go. At that point in time.
Why not at this point? Yeah, I mean, what's the worst thing? You could even make a case that Anderson from Alabama could have been in there as well too, because his stats are even higher than Hutchinson's as well too. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson had bigger impacts and bigger games, that type of thing as well too. And the same thing we talk about where the best player on the team. Aiden Hutchinson is clearly far and away the best player, but you can make a case for Anderson to be in here as well, too.
Well, like I said, I don't think Bryce Young is the best player in Alabama. I think Will Anderson is. And that's
Exactly.
just it. Like, I think Will Anderson is, like you said, well deserving of a case. Definitely got shafted in the year where you finally see a defensive player back in the top 4. But, when the voting ends up coming down, we'll see how it all shakes out. But, yeah, I just just invite as many of them that you think have a competitive chance. Because this year, I feel like there was no single standout. Really, I mean, like, Bryce Young never did anything to hurt himself. He never really did anything to extend himself.
I think until Georgia.
Until Georgia. Yeah, okay. Until the SEC championship game. Kenny Pickett is probably the only one to me where I was like, at any point in time, he really stretched himself out there. Kenneth Walker also stretched himself out there after the Michigan game. CJ Stroud never really let himself get out there, and that's more down to Ryan Day than CJ Stroud.
I'll say the Michigan State game, he maybe took that giant leap, but Bryce Young the same day threw for 500 yards. Like, no, you're not getting away from me.
Yeah, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns himself.
Yeah.
And Aiden Hudson, I mean, he was so streaky. It was scary. Like when he got on a roll in a game, he was just going to torture people. And then, but like the Michigan State game, I just keep coming back to where he was shut out and he could not get going. And it was like, where you at, guy?
Let's not forget he has Ojabo on the other side as well, too, as long as John Ross and Miller. Like, he's got some players with him as well, too. So, I mean, we can make a case for and against all of these guys well, too. So, just invite 6 or 7 next time on a year like this. It's not like a Joe Burrow Tua thing where the top one, and Chase Young, where it's like, all right, it's these 3 and everybody else is not even a question. We already knew it was Joe Burrow. Or Cam Newton's year. We already knew it was Cam Newton. Like, this it's not like one of those. There is no clear-cut winner. And honestly, I don't know what the betting odds are off the top of my head, but can I get in a little bit on the action? Because I don't feel comfortable with any of these ones.
Hey, the state of Ohio finally passed the betting law. You sent that to me earlier today, so we might be able to in time for the Heisman.
And it probably not, because it probably won't go into effect till the summer. We'll probably miss all the fun football time.
I could hope, right?
I hope you're right too. If they can kick this in before the end of football season, we could get in some of those late picks. Maybe that'd be great. But
we might have to drive. I might have to drive back over to Pittsburgh and go hang out with Stryker here soon, and see if I can get some betting in while.
Well, if you're going to drive to Pittsburgh, you better bet on Kenny Pickett then too. I mean, considering they work out in the same facility as the Steelers and stuff like that too, you better bet on Kenny. You can't go there and not pick him.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But that'll do it for our tip-off, which takes us to the main event, as I talked about. It is Pickmas time, main event presented by Colorcast. If you guys haven't checked out Colorcast by now, what are you doing with your lives? Based on all iOS devices, you can go on there and cast any game you want at any time. Now with the new Colorcast 3.0 release, it's absolutely fantastic. A brand new look, brand new UI, and the new hot take feature, which is super cool. We got to drop some of our hot takes on there. Well, at least I did. DJ, I don't know if you've gotten to yet, but there's some pretty interesting hot take options out there. And there's guys like Derek Brown from the Panthers, LeVar Ball out there that have dropped hot takes on the app. So be sure to go check that out. Colorcast app on your iOS store. So head on over to that. But it's Pickmas, DJ. It's the bowl season. We're finally getting to go bowling again.
We're going bowling again, and there's a whole lot to pick through as well, too, from the playoffs to New Year's 6 and pretty much 40-ish other bowls as well, too. So we got a lot of work cut out for us.
Yeah, 43 bowls in total. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly. DJ, we're just going to go rapid fire from start to finish. We're starting with the Bahamas Bowl here, and there we go. Toledo versus Middle Tennessee. And as you can see, we have our dogs actually as our selection. So wherever you see, I'm Hershey. DJ will be Brew in this case. So the blonde one is DJ. The tan dog, if you will, is me. That's just because she's a lazy dog and I get to pick her. So, but that's going to be our pick for the Bahamas Bowl is Toledo. We're going both Toledo. So no real surprise on that one. The Cure Bowl, Coastal Carolina versus Northern Illinois. I think we're both pretty stuck on Coastal Carolina in this one.
Coastal Carolina was ranked at 1.2. So, I mean, there's a reason for that. I don't expect them to fall to NIU here as well, too. It had not quite the bowl they were hoping for, but I expect them to come out and roll nonetheless.
Absolutely. And then you got the Boca Raton Bowl, Western Kentucky versus Appalachian State. As I talked about, Bailey Zapp literally leading the country in every passing stat.
And they're going to expand on that as well, too. And their receiver, whose name slips my mind, he leads in every receiving stat. And they will just add on that as well, too. It probably won't be close.
At a whopping 5'5" tall.
Yeah.
And then the New Mexico Bowl, Fresno State versus UTEP. UTEP making it 6-6. Fresno State, I believe they were 9-3, 9 and something like that. And was ranked at one point in time this season as well.
Absolutely as well, too. I don't see what UTEP really has to offer that's going to beat them. I think Fresno State's going to probably win in a 28-7 type fashion. Real comfortably, strong defense, control it on offense, do what they want to do, basically.
Yep. That takes us to the Independence Bowl, BYU versus UAB. And as much as I love the UAB logo, and I will forever love Blaze the Dragon, I cannot do it. I'm sorry. BYU is my choice for this one. Looks like DJ, you're going the same thing.
A little bit
You're
too
at the Independence
experienced.
Bowl.
Even without Zach Wilson this year, they're just fine. Like there's just a little bit too experienced. They got a little too much power. Like they'll do whatever they want as well too. They have a team full of upperclassmen.
A 9-3 team versus a 6-6 team again, and this time BYU being the 9-3 team. So, yeah, good luck UAB. I'm sorry, your resurrection season is, yeah, whoops. Anyways, the Lending Tree Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, is featuring Eastern Michigan versus Liberty. Malik Willis on show for this one, and that's why I went Liberty, hands down.
Same here. I just expect Malik Willis to back my draft stock and then put up like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. I expect him to basically have this as his mini pre-Senior Bowl, pre-combine, pre-scouting process. Like leave it. It's been a rough season for him overall, a lot of ups and downs. I look for him to put a little bit of a exclamation point at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be fun getting into the offseason draft scenario. So that leads us into the LA Bowl, which, by the way, is still like, I think is the coolest new bowl in like at least bowl design, but it's featuring Utah State versus Oregon State. And this Utah State team is nothing to slouch at. They are the Mountain West champions this season. And Oregon State, again, a sleeper team for a lot of the Pac-12, who had to go in there and try to fight their way out of Corvallis. But you know what? I went with Utah State with this one.
And they're not playing a Pac-12 team that's trying to make a run, so I'm not really trusting Oregon State. They're kind of like they're one of the teams I only trust. They're like Texas in the Big 12. I only trust them when they're trying to ruin another Big 12 team's chances. But against everybody else, not so much. And that's how I feel about what Oregon State is for the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Or like 100%. Purdue, that's a better example. When Purdue's trying to ruin another Big 10 team's chances, but then everywhere else it's like meh.
Yeah. No, and we'll get to Purdue a little bit later on because they do have a bowl game. This one, the New Orleans Bowl, the R&L carries New Orleans Bowl, December 18th, 9:15 p.m., which is a super late game for being in New Orleans. But I guess you got to party on bourbon somehow. So Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, or just Louisiana University as they go by now, versus Marshall, the Thundering Herd. And I think it's safe to say we are not Marshall in this case.
I have picked the Raging Cajun in pretty much every bowl they've been in since we started doing this because I refuse to not pick Raging Cajuns, one of the best names, and they're playing in Louisiana, in New Orleans, in Louisiana. Good luck, Marshall. I wish you good fortune in this war to come.
Look, and when it comes down to it, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, they know how to party on bourbon and still come out and play football at the end of the night. So you'll be okay for Louisiana fans out there, who, by the way, did just lose their head coach, but still gonna be he's coaching the bowl game, so it'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
That'll take us to the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and this one's my favorite just because of the logos of the two teams. Still, first of all, I still don't understand how a team in Tulsa, Oklahoma gets to be a hurricane, but you know, whatever, and then use the flags from the beach. I don't really get that part, but it's okay because it looks cool. But they're really Old Dominions is the dopest logo out there, and I almost picked them just because of the logo, but I couldn't do that to Tulsa, who has been an absolutely fantastic team all season.
Mine was kind of the same. I was like, Dan, this might be the best graphical design bowl. This should be called a graphic design bowl, honestly, as well, too. But I went with Tulsa. I just think as cool as Old Dominion's logo is, I think Tulsa just has they're just a little bit too well-rounded. Old Dominion's cool, but like, I don't think they have quite the players to match up with Tulsa.
Exactly. So that'll take us into what has been forever a bowl game, it feels like, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. I feel like this bowl game never gets old and never disappears, and I do believe this is still being played on Boise's blue turf.
I wish this was a New Year's Six Bowl. That is the only thing that is missing. It needs to be promoted.
Yeah, I mean, look, they get so much fancy stuff at this one. But really, surprise team here, Kent State. I mean, the Golden Flashes. Fantastic season that they've had. I mean, I think it was only, 7-5 they finished the season with. But for them, it's been a huge turnaround for where they were before. They actually look competitive in some games, facing off against Wyoming. And I don't believe either of us have any love for Wyoming in this one.
I don't see a way for Wyoming to win, unfortunately. I feel maybe if it's really ugly and close, but I just think Kent State's better all around as well, too, which is a step in the right direction for Kent. You don't say that about them very often as well, too. So I look for them to take the step forward and get this bowl W.
Yeah, shout out Josh Cribbs, Kent State alumni, as we just found out earlier today. And now that'll take us to the Tropical Smoothie Frisco Bowl, not to be confused with the Frisco Classic Bowl game, which we'll get to in just a minute. This one features the one-loss UTSA Roadrunners, which I still love their name and logo, versus the San Diego State Aztecs. I mean, we're split. We actually split on this one, DJ. As I went with the one-loss team, you went with the all-around run game out there. It looks like.
I mean, first in the Mountain West, and what I kind of gave them the beneficiary of too is they win a lot of close games as well too. When you just look at some of their previous games, I mean, they beat Hawaii 17-10. Nevada 23-21, beat UNLV 28-20. Like they can win a really close game. And I think it's a very similar close matchup. So I just kind of lean towards the team that I think has a little bit more that is a little more comfortable in these really close games. Obviously, that huge loss to Utah State, getting absolutely obliterated by them, probably hurts a little bit, but I expect for them to bounce back from that in this game.
Yeah, as I mentioned, getting beaten by Utah State in their championship game for the Mountain West, but also coached by Brady Hoke, former Michigan coach. San Diego State is fun fact for everybody out there. He went San Diego State coaching, back to Michigan, back to San Diego State. Really interesting trajectory, but they love him there in San Diego State. But UTSA, in my opinion, I think takes this one. That run game is so dirty. They have two guys that have just been absolutely dominating all season long. But that'll take us over to the Armed Forces Bowl, Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. This is Army versus Mizzou. I'm not going to say your full name, Mizzou, because you are forever going to be Mizzou in my eyes. This one, we're split on as well. You have the Army Golden Knights winning this one. I have Mizzou winning this one. Honestly, I had no reason to pick against Army. I just was like, why not? We're going to go Mizzou on this one.
You went SEC, and I went, you know what? Army and Armed Forces Bowl, you can't go against them. I think the Golden Knights will slay the Tigers in this one in a comfortable rout of 28-16.
Yeah, look, I think they get to use special uniforms because of the Armed Forces Bowl as well again. So that'll be really cool. Army special edition uniforms are always sick. But Mizzou, king of the uniforms in the SEC. Now that they're in the SEC, they were king of the uniforms in the Big 12 when they were there. But now in the SEC, king of the uniform combinations out there. So we'll see what crazy stuff they can pull out for this game. But as I talked about, this will lead us to the Frisco Classic football, the Frisco Football Classic bowl game. Why they have two games named Frisco something or another, I will never understand. But here we are.
Especially when the FCS championship game is in Frisco, too. Like, what did Frisco do to get such monopoly on big football games? Like, what's going on here?
I don't get it either. But that'll be North Texas versus Miami of Ohio, the Redhawks. So it looks like in the Battle of the Birds, we're both going North Texas in this one.
Home game for them. I expect them to take out Ohio easily as well, too. Miami of Ohio's they've been okay, but I lean a little bit towards North Texas, and I think they're going to take this one comfortably. Yeah,
and shout out Hector. I believe he is a North Texas alumni, if I'm not mistaken, from over there at insert name FC. But that'll take us into the Gasparilla Bowl, and honestly, I love the logo for this one. This one was pretty dope. It has the Sabres on it now. Florida versus UCF, the Gus Bus versus a brand new coach in Florida. So very interesting. I went Gus Bus. You went brand new coach in Florida.
Yeah, Florida, while they had a terrible season by Florida standards, they were still close in a lot of games. They were competitive with Alabama at one point. They still have their moments. I think it'll be enough in this bowl game to get over the top of UCF. Obviously, the new coach coming in as well, too. I think in this will be a nice start for them, too. I think sometimes in the bowl games for these bigger schools, when they play it up on a Gasparilla Bowl, like nothing that says not quite what they were hoping for, I think the new coaches can use that as a springboard. So look for Florida to take that step in. UCF, they're really, really good. Nothing negative to say there, even though they tried to say they were national champions when they weren't for like 3 years straight. But I look at Florida. I think they're going to win this one in a close one.
Fun fact, Auburn was one win away from ending up in the Gasparilla Bowl.
Irony.
The irony of seeing Auburn versus UCF would have been too much for me to bear.
Auburn fans would be bleeding. It'd be War Bloody Eagle.
Because Auburn would get beat by UCF again, and this time because of Gus, and not lose because of Gus. It'd be I guess they'd lose still because of Gus. It never fails. But anyways, that'll take us to the Hawaii Bowl featuring Hawaii versus Memphis. And honestly, this one is going to be a very fun game because, Hawaii is always a really competitive team when they play at home. And anybody who has to travel that distance to Hawaii is really kind of like vacation time, especially guys from Memphis. Look, I've been to Memphis's campus and getting to go to Hawaii from Memphis, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, sign me up like yesterday. I'll be there.
Hawaii's tamed with this. They're used to riding the dragon that is Hawaii as well too, especially in this time. Memphis isn't used to that. They're not going to be quite ready to play because they're going to be enjoying Hawaii just a little bit too much before the game as well too. Hawaii is used to riding this dragon, so look for Hawaii to come out here and put on a little bit of a mini show. Memphis will keep it kind of close, but I think Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl, it makes sense. I can't bet against them.
Did they ever bring back the Rainbow Warriors moniker? Because I still think that was one of the best logos back in the day, the Hawaii with the Rainbow Warrior head. I think that was one of the coolest ones. And
if they haven't, they should.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. That might be one that maybe falls under the Native American issue as well. So I don't know if that's the case. If that is, then never mind. We didn't say anything about it. But if it isn't, I still think it's one of the coolest logos that ever existed. So
it had a good run. If it is over, it did have a good run.
Absolutely. So the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, featuring Ball State versus Georgia State. And honest to God, I couldn't pick the difference. And then it came down to, well, if I pick against Ball State, Zach will kill me.
You know what? That's fair as well, too. I just look at Georgia. I was just like, yeah, Ball State. You know what? They're actually pretty decent as well, too. So I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, a season removed from a MAC championship, Ball State is. Georgia State, though, nothing to scoff at. And you talk about schools that have an up-and-coming team, it feels like. Georgia State, I mean, obviously, you talk about their conference, not so much, but they are competitive year in and year out. It seems like they always seem to be competitive to one team that they shouldn't be when they always go up against the top, of the FBS region. So I don't know. It's crazy with Georgia State. We'll see what they can do next season. But the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit featuring Nevada versus Western Michigan, and Nevada with their own quarterback that has something to say about the NFL draft here in this one.
Look for Carson Strong to put on a strong performance in this one too, and try and propel his draft stock. He is the guy that has all those natural attributes, if you will, that a lot of scouts kind of drool over, similar to like a Josh Allen, a Carson Wentz, a Trey Lance, those smaller school type of guys. Where I think Carson Strong's going to go out there and be like, wow, if I put on a clinic, I might be a first round pick if I do this right. And I think he's going to do that. It's going to be a quick lane to the end zone for them all day with him leading the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do also have to mention, I'll be remiss if I don't mention it, there is a quarterback at Western Michigan that is being recruited. However, he don't know if he's going to leave this season. He has the opportunity to stay, so he may or may not leave just because of that COVID year. He might come back for that super senior season, if you will. But that'll take us to the Military Bowl here, and that is BC versus Eastern Carolina University, and the Pirates seem to have taken the booty in this one.
Yeah, I think they're gonna rob this. I think they're gonna rob the ship here, and they're gonna down the Eagles as well too. There's not a whole lot in the Eagles I trust in this particularly. I think ECU will just be. I think they'll be able to take over this one pretty quickly.
Look, this isn't Matt Ryan's BC. This isn't the program's BC. If you guys remember that movie, I don't know if I just aged myself out of this one, but
you did, but it's okay.
Look, still one of the best. If you guys have never seen the program, I highly recommend going and watching that movie. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen. And kind of serious at the same time. It actually tackles things that we dealt with in the NLI recently. So very interesting. But we're both going to Eastern Carolina. Both going the Pirates. Should be a fun one nonetheless. But that takes us to the Birmingham Bowl. Houston versus the aforementioned Auburn Tigers. Well, I think it's safe to say we're divided on this one. And I don't blame you.
I'll just let you handle this one as well too. I'm just gonna say Houston's good. All right, you can talk this one.
Houston, who is a top 25 team at most of the season. Auburn, who was, a top 25 team somehow most of the season, had an outside shot at the SEC championship game, blew it multiple times, just couldn't get out of their own way. Two quarterbacks with banged up ankles. You will not see Bo Nix as he is out. We don't even know if Bo Nix will return for next season. We will see if JT is able to play in this game. If not, I honestly have no idea who starts a quarterback for Auburn. So that'll be interesting to see. But December 28th is a long way away still. So 12 p.m. Eastern time is when this one gets played. At the very least, there's still going to be a Tank Bigsby. There's still going to be a Jarquez Hunter. And maybe some guys playing defense. I don't know. Roger McCreary is already probably going to be holding out for the draft. And I don't blame him after his performance against Alabama. He's going the first round. Hands down. I don't ruin that, please.
Maybe Kobe Hudson will take the snaps. Who knows? They'll figure something out there as well too. And Roger McCreary, definitely nothing for him to gain here as well. Like he's pretty much set. Just take that Alabama game, move on to the draft process. There's nothing to gain here.
Please no Kobe Hudson at quarterback. There would be so many fumbles. But anyways, the First Responder Bowl. It is the Air Force Falcons and the Louisville Cardinals. And honestly, I had to go back to the day for Air Force to find any other logo other than their basic AF. And I was like, it's funny because it's AF, but no, I want their old school logo. It's so dope. Why they ever went away with this, I don't know. But it's not enough for me to pick them. I'm still going Louisville in this one.
Yeah, as great as the logos, both of them could have been put together. I'd lean towards Louisville as well too. A little bit too loaded for the Cardinals. Even without Lamar Jackson out there, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Hey, you mentioned not Lamar Jackson, but their quarterback is still a fantastic player as well. May have future Heisman Trophy candidacy for himself going forward.
Louisville's a weird school with how they get guys in the NFL. I mean, there's Lamar Jackson, there's Teddy Bridgewater, there's even Brian Braun back in the day who was supposed to be a top quarterback. They got a weird way of getting those quarterbacks to the NFL.
Yeah, it's a matter of time. It feels like before they get somebody in the NFL, it's like every 8 years they put out somebody new.
It's like somebody that sticks out, oh, this might be a first round guy. Every 8, it's like a Haley's Comet or something like that. It's just and here we go.
Yeah, that's possibly true. Start calling them Haley's Cardinals. See if that changes the name. But that'll take us to the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. Try to say that 5 times fast because I'm not going to. NC State versus UCLA. And you're going with the Fighting Chip Kellys, and I'm sticking with NC State.
Yeah, fighting Chip Kelly's going to look at this, and Chip Kelly's like, "Huh, that Oregon job looks awfully good right now. I bet if I put on a clinic in this game, maybe they'll take me back, and I could have my success again as well too." Because UCLA is not exactly a hotbed for recruiting, and I think Chip Kelly has felt that a lot. Looking at his recruiting class of the last couple of years in UCLA, not quite what they were when he was in Oregon. I think he'd like to be able to have that little bit of a pipeline that he started really in Oregon, maybe get that back as well too. So I look for him to be putting on an audition tape in this game.
You mean the pipeline where he used to still recruits from UCLA and USC at a regular clip?
Pretty
That
much,
pipeline?
yeah. But considering now he's at UCLA, they're still getting stolen from him anyway. So he might as well go back to being the robber instead of the robbie.
Yeah, good point. No, I like NC State's run game, and their defense is really good. They were in candidacy to be the ACC nominee until Pitt decided to step up, and Wake Forest and Sam Hartman decided to step up as well. But NC State was a competitive team through most of the year. So we'll see if they're able to do it against UCLA. That's who I picked. Their run game is just so fun to watch. But that'll take me to Liberty. And we both went Mississippi State over Texas Tech, the Mike Leach Bowl, if you will. And this one, the old pirate himself, Mike Leach, now coaching at Mississippi State, started his piracy really in Texas Tech. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think this is going to be a revenge game for Mike Leach? Obviously, we both believe so.
I saw a fun tweet where it said like Mike Leach preparing for Texas Tech, and it showed Rambo when he was like putting on the army paint across his body and across his legs, arming himself up with knives and guns and stuff. And I think that's gonna be this one. I think Mike Leach, he'll never admit it, and if he does, he'll do it in a weird way. But when he goes against schools that he used to coach for as well too, and they let him go, I see him going in there guns blazing and I see him trying to put up 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and let's not forget he left in controversy with Texas Tech. It wasn't like a desired leave or anything like that. There was the whole concussion situation. That's when concussions were really being figured out. Something he did wrong. It was just the coaching staff, how that happened, how that worked itself out. And unfortunately, his job was the one that was cut. So that's why he ended up leaving Texas Tech. Wazoo picked him up, and now here he is. Mississippi State got him bowl eligible. So look at successes as it is. But that'll take us to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, featuring West Virginia versus Minnesota Golden Gophers. Row the boat. I went row the boat on this one. Row your boat in Phoenix, Arizona. There's not too many rivers there, so I don't know where you're rowing your boat to. But Minnesota will row their boat in this one.
I think we agree on that one. The Golden Gophers will dig up the Mountaineers, and they'll take care of it as well too. So I don't see any way that Minnesota doesn't win this game. They were a quality Big Ten team. They could have made some noise as well too if they didn't have to deal with some of those that Big Ten being absolutely ridiculously loaded at the top this year.
Yeah, top 5 teams in the Big Ten, and then everybody else. It feels like. But that'll take us to the Fenway Bowl. Virginia versus SMU. Virginia, by the way, has one quarterback with only 300 attempts, top 10 in the nation in passing yards. Fun fact for you. SMU is still SMU. They are still June Jones's air raid team without June Jones. So, yeah, that's just really how it is. But, DJ, we're both split, SMU and Virginia. I mean, what'd you see in SMU?
Just pretty much you mentioned they have a weird ability to sometimes put up miraculous amounts of points. Like when they played Houston earlier in the year, they did lose 44-37 against Memphis, 28-25. UCF, they dominated UCF 55-28. Just kind of Tulsa 34-31. They have a weird ability to keep it close because they can just randomly start putting up points in abundance with that offense. So I think they'll find a way to outlast the Cavaliers, if you will. They will gallop away.
Fair enough. And much to Boston fans' chagrin, a shortly later bowl that following them, the Pinstripe Bowl up in New York City in Yankee Stadium. You go from one baseball stadium to another one, and you feature another Virginia team, Virginia Tech versus Maryland. And we are both feeling Hokie Nation on this one. It just feels too easy for Virginia Tech in this one. I as much as I like Tua's brother in at Maryland, he doesn't have enough weapons to be good.
Yeah, remember when Virginia Tech used to be a weird NFL pipeline as well too? They just sent defensive players in the NFL. It seemed like 3 every year from guys like Brandon Flowers, Cam Chancellor, etc. like that. Like they used to just send everybody, and now they've kind of slowed down a little bit. But I still think Virginia Tech, nonetheless, is going to find a way to contain the other Tagovailoa and make life difficult.
Yeah, so we'll see how that one goes for sure. But I do miss those days. Those days were great because they were great on special teams too. Exactly. And that's really what made a lot of them make their names.
Who was the coach back in those days? Do you remember his name off the top of your head?
I can't off the top of my head because they named the whole thing after him. It's Beamer Ball, Frank Beamer.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was thinking. I remember when they had Beamer Ball, when it would basically be defense, special teams, offense, just don't get in the way. They perfected that, and we're actually a really good team for a while as well. They had multiple times in the top 10. Logan
Thomas got drafted from that team. That's all you got to need to know as a quarterback.
That's all you need to hear, and then turn himself into a high-quality tight end. It's a shame he's out for the season right now, but absolutely as well, too. They used to be a mini pipeline as well.
Absolutely. All right, so getting down to the nitty-gritty, Iowa State versus Clemson. We are split again. Iowa State, I have going, and I just think Breece Hall is a little bit more than this Clemson team is prepared to handle.
I think Brees Hall is going to be fantastic when he decides to come out. I think Charlie Kolar, who just won the Campbell Award recently as well, too, as a tight end, is going to be the best tight end in the draft and should go in the first round. Whether he will or not, we'll see. And I think Iowa State has a lot of players, but for some reason this year, just nothing is clicking as well, too. Everyone seems to be out of sync. And Clemson, even though they went from like top 4 to unranked, basically, and they kind of were a trash heap of a season, they did pick up a little bit of steam down the stretch and got a little bit going. I mean, I still think they have issues at quarterback, but they do have quite a bit of talent across the board as well, too. I think that'll be enough to squeak by an Iowa State team that this just feels like a down year. Too many expectations. Both of these teams. This could have been a national championship based on the preseason predictions. And here we are in the Cheez-It Bowl. So quite the fall from grace for both teams.
Yeah, now you get to go to Orlando and hang out in a Cheez-It Bowl. That sounds like fun. But that'll take us to the Alamo Bowl. One of the fan favorites for actual players. Every player I've heard of that goes to the Alamo Bowl loves it. Loves the event. Loves the time in San Antonio. This one featuring Oregon, who just lost their coach Mario Cristobal to Miami. And Oklahoma, who we just talked about earlier, Lincoln Riley, bailed out and went to USC. Well, we both went Oklahoma just because I feel like, for me, I looked at it and I was like, well, they've had a newer coaching staff for longer, and Bob Stoops is still that dude.
So. And they brought in Brett Venables, so they know who their next head coach is going to be as well, too. We'll see if he's able to flip the script from an offensive juggernaut with no defense, that's wet tissue paper, to maybe they get a little bit of defense just in time, but something about Oregon getting absolutely clapped twice by Utah by a combined score of 70 to 16 in back-to-back weeks. Like, that's hard to bounce back from in Oklahoma. They're still kind of a mess, but I think Caleb Williams will still be the best player on the field if Kayvon Thibodeau decides to sit out, which I imagine he's probably going to do for the NFL draft. So I look at Oklahoma, even with the mess they are, they still have a lot more blue-chip players than Oregon does at this point. So give me Oklahoma in a weird game, just a very, very weird game. I have a feeling this is going to be very awkward to watch.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Speaking of awkward to watch, this is going to be an awkward bowl for me to talk about. The Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Carolina Civil War, if you will. North Carolina versus South Carolina. And we're both on Tar Heel Nation on this one. As we look, I think Sam Howell's a better prospect than anybody else on the field right now.
Pretty much, yeah. Not even close. I know the South Carolina running back did commit to the NFL draft. He's pretty solid. He's going to get picked and probably be a pretty solid pro at the next level. But look at Sam Howell to once again be like, I need to get my draft stock back up. I was arguably a top-rated guy coming in, and now I am fodder at this point. I need to put on a statement.
Absolutely. That'll take us to the Music City Bowl. Purdue, as we talked about before, facing off against Tennessee, and we both went Tennessee. And I look, Herndon, man, he's been a fantastic asset at quarterback this season for Tennessee.
Herndon is absolutely outstanding, and we already kind of talked about it. Purdue is only good when they're ruining high-level Big Ten teams' chances of going far into the playoffs / big aspirations. That's not the case here. This is not Purdue's bread and butter. I love Bell, the receiver. I think he's a potential first-round pick as well. But give me Tennessee in this one. If Tennessee was in the Big Ten trying to play for a playoff spot, give me Purdue. But based on track record, I can't pick Purdue in this one. I just can't. No,
fair enough. That'll take us to the Vegas Bowl. The Wisconsin Badgers taking on the Arizona State Sun Devils. You went Wisconsin, I went Arizona State, and I just like Jaden Daniels, really. That's the big thing. I like him in that offense a lot better than I like Wisconsin and what they can do on offense. I know Wisconsin's defense is tough, but I just like that offense from Arizona State a little bit more.
I just like Wisconsin's defense and those big hogs offensive linemen. They always find a way to run the ball in ways that make absolutely no sense. You lose a generational running back in Jonathan Taylor, and you have like 80% of the production with just the no names that you plug in since that point as well, too. Like, you plug in anybody in there, and they find weird ways to run the ball. So give me Wisconsin in a Wisconsin type game. Watch it be like 12-9 or some weirdly odd score.
Yeah, no, that's it probably will be, honestly. But that'll take us to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. Texas A&M versus Wake Forest. As we mentioned, Sam Hartman falling in the ACC title game to Pitt, who we'll talk about a little bit later, and Texas A&M, who had a shot again, outside shot at the SEC championship game, the only team to beat Alabama this season. And well, here we are.
Yeah, that's pretty much why I picked. That's why I picked them. I was like, usually when it's the one team that beat a powerhouse like that, like, oh, you were the team that beat Alabama, that's usually the highlight of the season. And I don't think that's going to change here as well, too. It's quite the highlight, don't get me wrong. But I think Wake Forest will just have a little bit too much for them.
Well, fair enough. I just like the defense a little bit more from A&M. That's really where it comes down to at the end of the day. But that'll take us to the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, which best name so far in the groupings, because at least it's different. I don't have to worry about getting it confused with the other Frisco Bowl.
That logo is kind of terrifying though, because Tony the Tiger looks like he's about to kidnap some kid cereal or something like that. Like, he does not. That is not a saint of a tiger.
Fair enough, but we're both split. You're going Wazoo. I'm going the U in this one. Mario Cristobal getting a chance to take on a Pac-12 team who he dominated in his career in Oregon. So, like, he already knows the answers to Wazoo. Whereas Wazoo taking on this Miami team, we'll see what they're able to do. Miami's been questionable at best. They were my team to pick to win the ACC, and they let me down.
they let you down really hardly, and they let you down against Alabama really quickly too early in the season. And Miami is just a mess right now. All the reports like there's like 17 hands in the kitchen right now as well too. I know Cristobal's getting in there, but I think I talked about earlier. Usually a new coach trying to make a statement in a bowl game. I think he's going to try to, but it's a big mess in there. He needs the full offseason to be like, all right, everybody get out and just let me do this.
Yeah, Manny Diaz opening the door to a whole lot of what's happening in Miami and is not fun looking. But that takes us to the Arizona Bowl, Boise State versus Central Michigan, and no love for the Chippewas. We're both going Broncos in this one.
It's close enough to Boise. Like there won't be blue turf, but there'll be a lot of blue shirts in the stands. And I think Boise State's just they're one of those teams that's always really surprisingly good. So I'm gonna take Boise State in this one.
Yeah, and if you try to watch this one, it is going to be on Barstool.com on their website. It'll be live streaming, which yeah, congratulations to them, I guess. But like that's all there is to it. Like yay, Outback Bowl. God, this logo is never going to change, and it just makes me so happy. But it's Penn State versus Arkansas.
Yeah, Penn State. More at future NFL prospects. Jahan Dotson. I think Clifford's actually healthy. Noah Cain and the Razorbacks. I think next year is the year where they start to make some noise. We saw KJ, for example, actually have some moments this year, and I think they have talent. But Penn State, their team that honestly should have been fighting for a New Year's Six bowl. They just had some injury rough luck, and then just do that Big Ten absolute mosh pit that it was down the stretch too. So give me Penn State in this one. Jahan Dotson goes ballistic if he plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll take us to the Citrus Bowl, the other game that's on January 1st. Kentucky versus Iowa, the ones that don't mean anything on January 1st, I should say. And we're split. I went Kentucky, you went Iowa. I went Will Levis, you went Iowa's defense, it looks like.
Pretty much, yeah. Although if Iowa can just only play defense and not have to play offense, I think that would up their chances. I feel like when they have to put an offense on the field is when they struggle. So if we could just have 60 minutes of Levis versus the defense, that is in Iowa's favor. Just keep that offense off the field.
Fair point.
Your way of solving a quarterback controversy is get the quarterback killed, and if he survives, then he's the starter. If he doesn't, then we bring in the backup because they don't protect or get open or do anything.
No, that's fair. I just like Will Levis. He's a lot of fun to watch, and I don't know. We'll see what he's able to do in this one as he's getting ready to transition to the pros.
I like Robinson too. I think he could make a case for himself too. If he could put on a bit of a clinic as well too. Kind of a smaller, fun receiver, maybe a second round pick that does a lot of damage if he can get on the field.
Yeah, that's true. Just get him on the field to watch him make plays. That takes us to the Texas Bowl, the last before the big games. That's K-State versus LSU, and we're both on, Brian Kelly's brand new accented team.
Yeah, he completely changed what he's ready to go. The LSU still has NFL type prospects. They still have LSU commits as a team. They're kind of a mess right now, but they still have the players. They're still significantly better than Kansas State, even though they've been a travesty this year.
Look, run the ball.
LSU standards.
LSU just run the ball. That's all you got to do. You'll be fine. Gus Johnson Jr., I believe his name is their quarterback still. He knows he's entering the transfer portal, but I believe he's still playing quarterback through the bowl game. So we'll see what he's able to do. But now we get into the fun ones. The Chick-Fil-A Peach Bowl. This one featuring Pitt versus Michigan State. If you guys missed the beginning of the episode, Kenneth Walker should be in the Heisman Trophy race. He's not, but he is facing a Heisman Trophy finalist in Kenny Pickett in this one, and it looks like we're both going Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Kenneth Walker's amazing, but there's nothing there to help him whatsoever, really. I mean, like that team surrounding him is kind of a mess, and I feel like it's going to literally come down to Kenny Pickett versus Kenneth Walker, and it's hard for a running back to beat a quarterback. It's a really tough ask. So give me Kenny Pickett in this one. I think once again another guy who's going to make that statement as we head into the NFL draft process, and he might even be walking in this game with a nice Heisman Trophy on his mantle as well. Too. There's a strong case for it, but I do think Kenneth Walker is also going to drop like 130 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Like he will not be denied himself, but it's hard to beat a quarterback as a running back when it's basically a mono battle. Yeah,
look, that Mercedes-Benz Superdome, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't know what they want to call it anymore. It confuses me now. But in Atlanta, it's going to be a track meet in there for Kenneth Walker, and Kenny Pickett's receivers are going to have a field day against those DBs. So it'll be a whole lot of fun all around. But then that takes us to the Fiesta Bowl. Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman as their new head coach versus Oklahoma State. And I guess, again, no love for the Okie for Oklahoma State in this one.
Yeah, I saw what Oklahoma State's the ultimate almost, I don't want to say fluky team, but they've been a very beneficiary team through a lot of the bounces this year. And with Marcus Freeman now as the head coach as well, too. I think we saw how Notre Dame reacted when they announced him as the head coach. They're going to come out with their heads on fire. They just missed the playoffs as well, too. I think they're going to put on a statement. We saw Sanders struggle a little bit with Baylor's defense. Here comes Kyle Hamilton in squad too. So good luck, everybody else. I think Notre Dame's coming out like they're going to make a statement.
Unfortunately, we won't get to see Kyle Hamilton. He does have that season-ending injury. Did not option for the surgery that would have gotten him back in time for the Fiesta Bowl, but he will be ready for the draft process. Unfortunately, I'd love to see Kyle Hamilton at the end of the day. But the Rose Bowl coming up, Ohio State versus Utah. We're split on this one though. You went Ohio State, I went Utah. I just love Utah on January 1st games, and when they're on New Year's Day 6 games, they seem to just play lights out. Last time Sugar Bowl against Alabama, beat Alabama that they shouldn't have, and before that the Fiesta Bowl. So Utah, look out, they're a team to reckon with, and that run game is still scary.
Yeah, Ohio State has 3 first-round receivers, a Heisman Trophy candidate, and a record-breaking freshman running back, and some defensive guys getting drafted too. I like Utah. They're one of those teams every year. It's like you root for them every year. I remember a few years ago when they were the Pac-12 champions, and it with like Julian Blackmon, Burgess, and those guys as well too. But if Ohio State comes to play, I don't think there's any way Utah's gonna be hang with them. If it has a chance to be a boat race if they're not careful as well too. Utah, while a good defensive team offensively. If Ohio State gets on the board, I think it's going to turn into a flood if Ohio State gets going in that first quarter, like they did against Michigan State, for example.
Yeah, we'll have to see on that one. I think this one can go either way. You're exactly right. It could get really nasty, really fast, and if you're a Utah fan, you're not going to enjoy it. But I think Utah will be good enough, and they're playing for something. Look, they have pride, and they have playing for another person on their mind, and that's something that can never be oversold. So we'll see in this one. This one's January 1st, obviously. The granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. Still, I had to go the old school logo for this one because everything else just didn't seem to encompass what the Rose Bowl should mean. It should
be more than it does now. It should be a playoff game every single year, or the national championship or something. Like it needs more steam behind it, or just more playoff games. So the Rose Bowl's one every year. We can make the New Year's 6 all playoff games. But I digress.
Yeah, there we go. But that'll take us to the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss versus Baylor. The Fighting Lane Kiffins versus Baylor. And honestly, I was actually torn on this one. If I'd have known you were going with Ole Miss, I would have probably gone Baylor myself, just because I do like Baylor, what they bring to the table. They're competitive, and they're a grinded out team. Granted, Lane Kiffin's teams do the exact same thing. Plus, there's that guy, Matt Corral.
Yeah, you see a theme here with these quarterbacks coming out in the draft process as well, too. Matt Corral being one of them who wants to say, hey, Kenny Pickett, get out of my way. And I can see him putting on a bit of if he could put on a decent showing against this Baylor defense, I think that would be great for his candidacy. And Baylor's offense, as great as it looked early in that game against Oklahoma State, it faltered a lot. I mean, Gary Bohannon's supposed to be coming back, I would imagine, at this point too, but I just don't know what to expect. Offensively, they do have a weird ability to get stagnant if their run game slows down a little bit, and they really only beat Oklahoma State by less than 2-3 inches too. I mean, my goodness, how it doesn't get much closer than that. So I like Baylor. They're a really good team, but I'm going to lean towards Ole Miss in this one. I think Matt Corral is going to make just a few more plays.
No, that's fair. I just like this game, really. This one will be a fun one, top to bottom.
Definitely.
But that gets us into the college football playoff games, the ones we've been trying to get to. We hurry up to get to. They still took forever to get to. So we're gonna get right to them. Alabama versus Cincinnati. Alabama, we both seem to think they're gonna wipe the floor with Cincinnati.
I hope they don't get boat raced. I hope they don't get flooded. I hope they don't get smacked. I hope all of those adjectives do not get put in place. I hope Desmond Ridder keeps it close, but it's really hard to pick Cincinnati. I like Desmond Ridder a lot. They have some players. They deserve to be here. But after what Alabama did to Georgia, I'm like, damn. Unless John Mechie was really the key and him being out is what's going to give Cincinnati a shot, it's hard to pick against them right now.
Yeah, look, I agree. I mean, if Cincinnati was going against either one of these other two teams, I think they're competitive. Alabama, man. It scares me. It scares me in this one. So
unless they somehow can do an Auburn defensive game plan and really frustrate Bryce Young and don't let him get comfortable and get after him, then you have a shot. But if Bryce Young's allowed to throw darts, nobody in the country is beating that team if Bryce Young can chill and throw darts.
No, that's so true. But that'll take us into the Orange Bowl. So we both have Bama going into the championship game. And who will they face? It's a split. DJ, you have Michigan going against in this one in the Orange Bowl. I have Georgia winning. So we'll start with you. Michigan, you think Jim Harbaugh has enough?
I think they have a really good running game as well, too. Hayden Haskins, Corum, I think they have a strong offensive line. I think their defense is going to absolutely harass. If it is Stetson Bennett, it's going to look like what against Alabama, where he just looked off. He looked a little incomplete. It looked like either he was told not to scramble or he was scared to scramble. It just looked a little bit odd. And if he does scramble, Aiden Hutchinson will chase him down. Ojabu will chase him down. John Ross, those guys will chase him down. The running backs, Michigan's run defense minus that Kenneth Walker game has been pretty good throughout the season. I think they'll make life a little bit difficult. And on offense, it's going to be terrible for both teams. Michigan's going to have a tough time moving the ball in Georgia, but the secondary for Georgia, I think, got a little bit not exposed, but there are holes in it. You just have to hold up front. And Michigan does have a decent enough offensive line and tight ends that could do that as well, too. So I think it's ugly. I think it's miserable, honestly. And this could be the type of game where Georgia's looking ahead to Alabama again. They're thinking, oh, we want redemption. And Alabama's game will already be done by this point, so they will know. They'll be thinking ahead. And you never know. They might be trying to correct things for when they play Alabama and forget about the task in front of them.
Yeah, no, I'm look. That's all valid points. I look at this is whatever happened against Alabama was just a myth. It's like it literally just never happened. I'm just gonna pretend it didn't happen because that was so crazy. I look for Nakobe Dean to have himself an absolutely fantastic game. Him and Nolan Smith off the edges. I think they're gonna be absolutely terrifying. And look for James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother, to absolutely go off. No matter who's quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised to see JT Daniel out there, to be completely honest with you. I do think you can take advantage of this Michigan secondary with passing, and, it's absolutely an opportunity for JT Daniel to go out there and showcase himself.
I would be
look for Georgia.
I'd be more worried about them if I was a Michigan fan if JT Daniels was playing the Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett, while effective throughout the season, he is an athlete. I think JT Daniels is a better, more talented, more gifted quarterback, and I think you'll win more games with JT Daniels. It feels like the Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm type of thing as well, too. Sure, Stetson Bennett, Jake Fromm, it's all fine and dandy. Why fix it ain't broken? But the other guy gives you a little more gangster, a little bit more extra something to win games. Same thing with Justin Fields and Jake Fromm. Like, the other guy will win you games where the current guy just won't lose you games.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to the national championship. We have two split choices here, and that is Alabama versus Michigan is what DJ's choice is. I have Alabama versus Georgia in the national championship. And before we get to that, we do have a Brock Bowers is a true monster, especially if JT is on the field. And absolutely, 100%. Like
Brock Bowers, it might be that second best tight end behind Charlie Kolar if he comes out as well, too. Like 1A, 1B, like I think they're both absolutely sensational. They could both be first-round guys very easily.
Yeah, and honestly, before we get out of that, Stetson Bennett literally was lighting it up with Bowers consistently. So imagine what JT Daniels could do with him stretching the field as far as he can. But look, the national championship game, we're split. We're not going to give you the answer for who we think will win our individual games. You guys could probably maybe guess what we have in mind, but you probably won't guess it right.
Well, no, I'm almost kind of curious what you have in mind now. Is that a Roll Tide smell I hear over there?
No, that's not a Roll Tide smell you hear.
So you think Jordan Davis redemption story?
I'm just not going to say. I'm going to say wait until the week of January 10th when we give our final predictions for the big game, the big game now.
Watch this. Now, neither one of our predictions is going to come true as well, too, at this point. Now the big game is going to end up being like Cincinnati versus Michigan or Cincinnati versus Georgia or something like that.
Absolutely. That'd be absolutely hilarious. But that'll take us out. We're actually not going to have much time. We don't have time to get to crunch time. So we're going to shorten this one a little bit. And we have to talk about what we're doing this weekend, DJ.
It's good. It should be fun, as you can see on your screen as well, too, if you're watching this live. If not, we will be at a tailgate in Cleveland as well. The Top Dog Tailgate is at 890 West Summit. We'll be hanging out on Colorcast. It'll be me, myself, as joined by Kelcey from the High Low Sports guys. And, of course, we'll have Zach from Gridiron Gallery and TSS Fantasy. Commissioner Cooper will be jumping on to join us. If you are able to go there in person, there'll be beer provided from Brewdog Brewing Company. As you guys know, if you've seen Dog Brew on a lot of our live casts, there will be Brewdog beer there as well. Some food as well. And, of course, the opportunity to win a signed Joe Thomas jersey, arguably a top 5 to 10 offensive lineman all time. The chance to win an autographed jersey, and I know a few people who will be entering that. You'll be able to enter that on social media or in person.
Look at this. This even has a little Beckett certificate of authenticity right there. So legit Joe Thomas jersey will be up for auction. Well, not so much auction. It'll be giveaway. We'll give you all the details.
Now an auction now.
I was like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't call it an auction. People might actually try to give us money for this thing. But no, that's not the goal.
Still accepting donations.
Yeah, we're going to be giving this away to one lucky fan. We're going to either give away through Colorcast or live there in person. We'll give you all the details on how to enter through the internet here coming up in the next couple of days. We'll actually have a post coming out on Friday for how to do that because we have to have so many days. We only can give you so many days because also we have to keep up with all the entries. That's the big thing. But that'll do it for us today. You cannot wait for this weekend. If you guys are in the Cleveland area, be sure to show up. If you're not, jump on Colorcast or maybe just stay tuned on our social media. Weather permitting, we may or may not be able to live stream.
And definitely be sure to check out Brewdog Brewing Company as well, too. A fantastic brewery, very, very local in the Columbus, Ohio area as well, too. And definitely some different spots worldwide. So if you get it, or nationwide, so definitely get a chance to give them a look as well, too. High quality beer, even better name. And they're gracious enough to help partner up with us. So why not give them a look?
Absolutely, guys. But until next time, as always, we will see you later.